given the fact that we have two different political systems, India and China, there have been reports that, for example, China's handling of certain crises, like for example the Uyghur Muslim crisis in the areas bordering Pakistan and Iran, now that has become an area of concern for the world. So do you think we can have democratic-like stability in China, where these uprisings and people are pacified and they're brought into the mainstream?
That was actually in the introduction of my presentation. Also, I mentioned about this Charles Tilly book, which is called the Evolution of State, and the relationship between the capacity of the state and the democracy. I think, to me, when my whole understanding is about China is that they are intensively spending money and time and energy and resources on building capacity, and I think the democracy will happen naturally, but you cannot insist on having a democracy and deny the necessity and the basic and the infrastructure of your country. That's how we have to take a look at the situation between India and China. In terms of course, I think in any developing country, we have crisis. Don't you think that even in democratic India, we don't have crisis? We have 250 million people not having access to the clean water. Yesterday, I heard that 45% of the people don't have access to electricity. So think about it. Having a democracy in the cost of losing lives and poverty is maybe too expensive. But having a control system, building a high capacity, and then going to other direction, because I see, honestly, I'm in China and living in China for almost 13 years of my life. Of course, they used to go to the hotel and they needed the copy of my passport. They even write my telephone number. That was a communism back 13 years ago. But now I see this more openness, more freedom. You will see the press in China, even in Tibet conflict or Urumqi conflict, the press allowed to go to capture all the scene of the crisis. So this shows that the democracy is happening. But the good news for China is that they build the capacity to reach to that strong state.
Why I was asking about this is, for example, we've seen totalitarian or centralized regimes, like for example in the Soviet Union and other places, that they do build up systems, they do match up to Western capitalist systems for long period of time, and then what happens is that the social systems then break down and you have a sudden collapse, all within 1 or 2 years. So this is what an international investor is really worried about, because all at one go the entire edifice could come crumbling down. Whereas in India, you'll have a more moderate thing. You'll see the sustained struggle. You'll see fire burning here and there, but no cataclysmic problem.
Putting the time change, the time of the collapse of the Russian Federation or Soviet Union is past. And I think people, even China itself, learn a lesson out of it. And I tell you, today in the Communist Party, I know, this is one of my friends who's having a seat, who is a Communist Party member. I think in the party is sitting thousands of people every year when they have a meeting. He said there are 200 PhDs who each one of them have studied different foreign countries. And I think the party and the government is much more smarter than to just sit there and doing nothing and then wait for anticipating the collapse. I'm sure they embrace the idea of democracy. They totally understand it. They totally digested it. But they prefer to open gradually, to let the democracy come in a time that the country have enough capacity. And I think this is the legitimate reason. Yes, I know always I'll say India have a very strong fundamental on democracy. This is a great thing having it. The organic growth of the country, it depends on the democracy. But again, when you see the differences, the question mark come to your mind that why there are differences then, why there are this much problem in India in terms of infrastructure and poverty, which in China is at least what we see is gone.
Right, right. Behzad, finally, we'd like to know, is it possible for Indo-Chinese cooperation to exist in, say, power? For example, import and export of power between the two countries through dedicated power lines from the northeast of India? Or
yeah, I think that was my topic as well. I said India because we should not look at the China as a threat or competitor, or and also from the Chinese side, we should not look at India as a competitor. This morning was about the securitization of the energy, especially in the oil and the gas sector. But I think about a day, there's no oil and gas. And then what? Still China is an enemy? Still China is our competitor? I think both sides should sit down and think about a new framework, about how to embrace opportunities for the energy market, which is catering at least their own people for 2.5 billion people. I mentioned in my presentation as well. Think about how much we can complement each other in terms of using engineering, intellectuals, services in India and the software in India, and also using the capacity of the manufacturing in China. If you put this one together, you will see there's nothing can be impossible there. You can achieve all the goals you have toward energy production, even energy security, or China and India become the exporter of energy to the whole world.